What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Ultra League, believe it or not, and we're going to be looking at the rank 2 Pokemon in the Ultra League, and that Pokemon is Corviknight. Obviously, these rankings are according to PvPoke, but we're going to take a look at it today. This is an XL Mon, but fortunately, it is a 1 kilometer buddy, which means if you walk Corviknight above, and it's already powered up above level 31, then you get a higher chance of it dropping XLs when you're walking it as a buddy every single time you get a candy. So if you walk 40 kilometers, maybe you'll get 35 XL candy, if you're lucky, kind of thing. So fortunately, that makes it pretty easy to grind the XLs for this Pokemon, so I was finally able to get it. But yeah, without further ado, let's hop into some battles and take a look at XL Corviknight in the Ultra League. I will say, I don't know, in the title it's going to say that it is rank 2 for a reason. What that reason is, though, I'm not sure, because this thing is not, it's just so underwhelming. The fast move pressure is just not quite there, but into the first match, we've got a Blastoise on the lead. Rollouts are resisted, but Hydras are neutral. I try and go for a Hydro catch onto my Gliscod, but my opponent waits a turn, actually, and they are now able to connect with a Skull Bash against my Gliscod. They then come in with a Virizion, and at this point I am in Leaf Blade range, but that doesn't mean I can't connect with two X Scissors first. So my opponent will be able to maintain alignment, but that's okay here. I can just come back with my Flygon. I can get the Dragon Tail farm down. I could have also thrown so that I didn't have to burn a shield, but I actually wanted to come out with energy because I know that their Blastoise is energy dry. So I know I can at least grab a shield back, and it's actually a Wheezing in the back, so full sending the Scorching Sands. This is super effective damage, and my opponent does quickly shield it up. We also get the attack drop, which is pretty huge, and then we come in with our Corviknight. Now we do have super effective sand attacks, but unfortunately I am not running the Legacy Iron Head move on this Pokemon. I think I TM'd it off pretty early on when I got this Pokemon, because I was like, when are you ever going to want steel type coverage? And then they buffed like Credilli and Glaring Wheezing. So I kind of regret it now, especially because its pacing is better with Iron Head, but we're stuck with payback, so that's what it's going to be. Don't feel like using an Elite TM. Either way, they come back in with the Blastoise, they get Sky attacked out, and they come back with the Wheezing, and they just resign the match. Clearly not running Overheat there. Shadow Credilli on the lead in the next match. This is a neutral lead, especially because we pace the exact same, except that we win CMP. So if my opponent, they can connect with a neutral Grass Knot, but Grass Knot will not be enough to KO. Everything is bulkier in the Ultra League, so I will let it go, and they bait the Rock Tomb. I mean, I guess if it's going to take 2 charge moves to KO anyways, may as well Rock Tomb. But they actually make a really nice catch onto their Wheezing as soon as I got to the next Dragon Claw, but now that means I can align my Corviknight, and as long as my opponent, they did farm up to it, as long as they're not on Overheat, we should be fine. Always calling the bait. They actually go for a Sludge, so maybe they're on Sludge Play Rough. That would be pretty unfortunate for my opponent. Either way, we can now connect with a Sky Attack, which means we can actually get a Sand Attack farm down, which is pretty nice, especially because this is probably not a hard-hitting charge move. Brutal Swing connects. Here comes another Brutal Swing, but we will still be able to get a full farm down and come out loaded with energy. They then come in with a Hex Dusk Noir, so I am going to go for the payback right before they make it to a Shadow Punch. Now I'm instantly going to pivot right into my Gliscod. Gliscod obviously has super effective Shadow Claws in this matchup, and I can very comfortably take multiple Shadow Punches. I'm not threatened by a Dynamic Punch because that is resisted. And Aqua Jet is neutral. It'll do some pretty solid chip. We actually grabbed the second shield from my opponent, which is kind of surprising because they haven't even grabbed my first yet. I can let a second Shadow Punch go through, and at this point, I can just throw the Aqua Jet pretty much as soon as I get it. It looks like it might have been a CMB tie, or maybe my opponent just stuttered. It looks like they just stuttered, but now they're going to throw their energy. At this point, once that connects, this game is over. I can just come in with my Flygon, get the full farm down. They pivot into their Credilli because they have energy, but they're just going to get Dragon Tail farm down. Even if they Rock Tomb here, that's fine. Instantly reset, get the Sand Attack farm down, and then everything is at 1 HP. So what they want to do here, they want to resign the match. Okay, flying on into Registeel. This is not a great matchup, but my opponent actually gets out in a Dusk Noir, and this one is on Astonish, which means we can actually outpace to a Dragon Claw, and once we connect to this with this Dragon Claw, we can instantly pivot into our Gliscod, because now one charge move will KO. I believe they're at the back-to-back moves, so I have to let this go, and they do throw the second. They have already committed a shield, so I may as well commit one back, and then overfarm here. Because I know they're just going to come back in with that Registeel. And my opponent can't shield this because we have 2 moves, but they actually do. But we're still able to outpace, so kind of a strange decision by my opponent. Now I'm going to go down pretty close to a move. They have their own ground dragon in the back in Zygarde, so we're going to connect with an Aqua Jet. This will do some okay chip, and it does. And now we can just align our Corviknight, which resists Dragon Tail, it resists Bulldoze, it resists Outrage, it resists Earthquake. The only thing they can throw at us is Crunch, I believe. If they're running it, they switch back into the Registeel, and now with a shield advantage, I can just shield up the Focus Blast. I'm going to now go for a Scorching Sands before they get to another charge move. This does have a chance to debuff my opponent's attack, and we actually do get it, which is massive, but they do throw on really good timing right before we get to the next charge move. But at this point, they're pretty much in Sand Attack farm down range, maybe not quite. Yeah, I'm going to throw just to be safe because I have such a dominant matchup of Corviknight into Zygarde, so I may as well pick up the knockout with the Sky Attack. They come back in with the Zygarde. Even 2 crunches from a bulky Zygarde will not be enough to KO, and oh my god. And that really is the strength of Corviknight. It's typing and it's bulk. I mean, those 2 things together obviously make a great pair. We're pretty close to the back-to-back Sky Attacks. Obviously, Zygarde is also super bulky, so it's going to take one of these pretty easily. But even if they're able to make it to another crunch, which it looks like they did on CMP with our next Sky Attack, they wouldn't be enough to KO, even with the defense fall. So we do take that win. Okay, into the next match, we've got Gliscod on the lead. What I like to do for this matchup is I'd like to just play out the ones. I believe our board Flygon here maybe does win the ones, just because Aqua Jet is not enough to KO, and they actually make a really nice catch once again onto a Florges, so that is double resisted, but now we have alignment, we have our Corviknight onto the Florges. Everything they can learn here is resisted, so definitely just gonna let this go. They are gonna full send the Moonblast. We're gonna overfarm pretty significantly here. Obviously, we don't have Iron Head in this matchup, which is pretty unfortunate, but we can still connect with a Sky Attack. Oh, Tinkaton's another one. You're walled by Sky Attack and Payback, so you really want to be on Iron Head in this meta. But we actually grab a shield from my opponent, which is kind of strange, because now we can just connect with a Sky Attack. This will do some okay chip, but it's not quite enough to KO the Florges. Another Moonblast will still not KO from this range. Yeah, I mean, it does pretty good damage, but they have no ability to farm down because Fairy Wind is resisted, which means that you can get to a 3rd Sky Attack, and my opponent is going to let that go. Now they're going to get some farm on the Registeel. I'm going to come in with a Flygon. They have no ability to farm down here, so I am just going to throw the Scorching Sands as soon as I get to it. And if they do want to expend some energy, I'm totally okay with that. They come back in with the Gliscod, and now we have alignment here. We can definitely live 1 X Scissor. So we're going to let the first go. We're more threatened by the Registeel's charge moves. Now going for our own X Scissor to get the knockout here. And now it's a 2 shield Gliscod against a Registeel, which is already at a charge move. But they once again have no ability to farm down, so they have to full send these really expensive charge moves. We're now able to connect with an Aqua Jet, and now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pivot into my Flygon. That does kind of look like a catch, but it's not really. They did throw pretty much once they saw my Flygon come in, because they know they can't farm down. And all we need is a Scorching Sands to KO. We are able to get there, and we're able to take that win. Primeape on the lead. Once again, this is a neutral matchup. Obviously, these Dragon Tails do so much damage, but the pacing on Primeape allows it to go 4 in the move on perfect timing pretty much every single time, which is why we go pretty much 1 in the move every single time we can, so that we can threaten a shield back. And look, our HP is basically the same, whereas we've grabbed a shield and they haven't. Obviously their pacing is much better, but in the one shield we will be able to take this. So is my opponent willing to commit 2 shields on the lead? They are not. So Flygon wins the ones. It's a Glisspot in the back. So I'm going to let myself get fully farmed down. I'm going to come mirror with my own Glisspot. I will get 1 turn switch as I come in there, which is just fantastic. But we can eat 1 X Scissor. They're already at back to back. I can live a second one. And pretty much all I have to do is grab a shield from my opponent. But they have a Blastoise in the back. Oh, excuse me. Blastoise, obviously, pacing is really good with the rollouts now, and both Rollout and Hydro are neutral here. So this is really just a neutral matchup. They have non-stab on their fast move, we have non-stab on ours. They have stab on their charge move, we have stab on ours. So realistically, this should be a very neutral matchup. That being said, Corviknight's pacing is bad, and its charge moves are worse, so it's kind of in a pretty tricky situation. They were energy dry, so I do overfarm here, and now I'm going for the knockout blow with the Sky Attack. We are able to connect with that. They come back in with the Blastoise. I'm able to get to another Sky Attack, but at this point they're at the charge move, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw 1 Sand Attack and catch onto my Glisspot, because my opponent waited the turn there, which is why I threw the 1. But that still doesn't allow me to get a Sand Attack farm down. We're basically doing 0 damage with our Sand Attacks. Like, it's actually insane. In the Ultra League, I see this thing is ranked 2, but I just don't get it. Like, I don't know. You know what this thing feels like? It feels like a flying Registeel. Registeel has no fast move pressure and no ability to farm down, and its charge moves are both nuke moves, right? And that's kind of what you get with Corviknight. Sand Attack does no damage. Payback and Sky Attack are nuke moves, but they're just not as good nuke moves. So it's typing, yeah, it's great, but I feel like it's just the Registeel of the sky. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just so underwhelming every single time I use it. But its typing and its bulk are great. It's just those things are really holding it back. If this thing ever gets a better fast move, or even just 1 cheaper charge move, it's going to be absolutely everywhere. But at the moment, it's pretty underwhelming. That said, we're in a pretty neutral matchup here. It looks like we did win switch, and even though we aligned our Glisspot in a matchup where it has neutral charge moves and fast moves, my opponent, who's using non-stab fast move and resisted charge moves, is able to grab 2 shields and take that matchup in the ones if they wanted, which is just absurd, just because there's just a huge bulk difference between Lapras and Glisspot, and that's where Glisspot struggles. That said, we maintain alignment, so we keep our Flygon onto the fortress. They come in with a Dragon Breath Giratina. Now this is great because we can align our Corviknight, and we've chipped it with a Dragon Claw, which means now it's in 1 charge attack range. They're overfarming pretty significantly here, but so am I, because I want to be able to come out with a charge move loaded. And I'm not really threatened by Shadow Sneaks. I'm at 100 energy at this point, so I do have to throw. My opponent's probably just going to let this go and go for farm on Fortress. No, they're going to shield that up, and perfect timing from my opponent must be counting, because they throw right before I get to my next Sky Attack. At this point, they're pretty much already at another Shadow Sneak, so I may as well throw the charge move as soon as I get it. I'm going to stay in with my Corviknight, force them to throw, and then actually catch a Rock Tomb onto my Flygon that is resisted damage, and they have these Volt Switches are triple resisted. So yeah, my opponent has had enough, so they just resigned the match. Tinkaton. Okay, so this is a terrible lead. We are going to get out into our Glisspot, and my opponent is staying in, so obviously they do not have a great response to our Glisspot. They are going to just stay in this matchup and chip with a Play Rough. I'm going to let this go in case they bait, but they do full send the Play Rough. And they have a Zygarde in the back. Now Zygarde obviously is very strong neutrally and is very bulky, so my opponent is running Tinkaton and Zygarde, which is absolutely crazy. I don't even know how they have all the candy and XLs for all this stuff already, but I'm now going to instantly pivot back into my Flygon. I'm not really worried about a crunch here, so I'm just going to let that go, and that allows me to get a full farm down. Now, I know I'm in a terrible matchup against the Tinkaton, but I now have an energy lead, which means I can get to a Scorching Sands, and Scorching Sands would threaten a knockout from my opponent, so they're forced to commit the shield. They do get a full wing attack, a full Fairy Wind farm down, but we don't really care because everything the Tinkaton can learn is resisted on Corviknight. So once again, this is where Corviknight is great. We resist Bulldoze, we resist Play Rough, Flash Cannon, Iron Head, Heavy Slam, whatever this thing knows. I don't think it actually learns Iron Head, but yeah, we've got it all. And at this point, I'm gonna actually make a catch because I kind of just want to fully farm down the Tinkaton and come out loaded with energy because our energy is otherwise wasted here. But I am forced to throw because otherwise they would make it into another charge move. Sky Attack probably still not enough to KO, yeah, but it does put them in Sand Attack farm down range, and it's a Guzzlord in the back. So my opponent is triple weak to Corviknight, and we have a 2 shield Corviknight with basically 3 shield because I caught on the Gliscod. So we've got a 3 shield Corviknight against a Zygarde, Guzzlord, and Tinkaton. I should win this matchup, right? Anyways, we are going to farm up as much as we can here. At this point, we just kind of have to shield everything. My opponent has farmed up to a potential crunch if they have it. They do just bait with a Dragon Claw. And at this point, I will just have to connect with a Sky Attack and hope this is enough damage to KO the Guzzlord. Not quite. Can't get the Sand Attack farm down. If this is a Dragon Claw, I will live it. If it's a crunch, I lose this game. And just like that, Corviknight loses to a Guzzlord, Zygarde, plus Fairy Line Tinkaton. So into the next match, we've got a Flygon into a Zygarde. I'm going to overfarm here and play to a CMP tie because I know I do win the CMP tie. My opponent can take all the Dragon Tails and a Dragon Claw and still be fine, but they'd be still almost Dragon Claw farm me down. I am able to live on pretty much 1 HP, which is great because now I can just get to a Scorching Sands against this fortress. This will do some pretty sizable damage, and they have 0 ability to farm me down here, and I get an attack fall, which is pretty massive. I might even commit a shield here because I'm literally in the red, but there's nothing my opponent can do to farm me down. Like, literally watch this. I'm going to go for another Scorching Sands. We got the attack drop on the first, and now I'm going to pivot into my Corviknight because I don't want to get farmed down there. And I'm not really threatened by any charge moves on the fortress, whereas my Gliscod is, and it is a Drapion in the back. So we can take 1 crunch. It looks like we would be able to take 2, especially with the Poison Stings being double resisted and them not getting a defense drop. But because our attack is debuffed, that Sky Attack does pretty weak damage. However, now the second Sky Attack will connect. I'm going to come in with my Flygon, try and snipe. I'm unsuccessful, but this forces my opponent to throw their energy. They connect with an Aqua Tail against my Flygon, and now I'm going to come back in with the Corviknight. I'm basically just going to stay in here and force them to throw some energy. They do throw some energy, which means they are completely energy dry at this point. And now it is Gliscod against the world. I basically just have to watch for a catch on the Drapion, which means always throwing in the middle of the animation of the Volt Switch. Fortunately for me, in this situation, 1 Rock Tomb is not enough to KO, even plus these Volt Switches, and we can always throw in the middle of a charge move because it will not register because it's a 4-turn versus a 2-turn fast move. So we can wait, throw at the very last second, get the Shadow Claw farm down of the Drapion, and we're able to take that win. Yeah, so I ran with this team, obviously, as you can see, high in Expert, pretty close to Legend. I ended up going back to the Remix Cup, getting Legend, and then coming back to the Ultra League and playing a little bit more. I believe in some of these battles I was Legend, was I? I don't know, and I don't know if I can find it. But regardless, yeah, I mean, this team works near Legend Elo, and I'm using a Shadow Flygon instead of a Zygarde, which is definitely the more meta version of this team if you wanted to run it. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much it from me from this video. I'm not sure when I'm going to release this, if the legend video and this one are going to be out of order. I kind of want to get the legend video out just because realistically I know people are going to click on that because of like I've hit legend and people want to see the team and all that stuff. So this might go up after, so don't get confused if you see me back to expert even though I just hit legend. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.